The second one was that very serious discrepancy now exists concerning Samatha and Vipassana. There is now found a general belief that there are two vehicles, what they call Samatha Yanika and Vipassana Yanika. And this has its origin in the commentaries. The commentaries say that in the Nikayas, there are two types of Arahant. One that cultivates Samatha meditation, another one that cultivates Vipassana meditation. And out of this hypothesis, out of this assumption, they have said that this person who cultivates the Vipassana Yanika, he might be enlightened with the 4 jhanas, or 3 jhanas, or 2, 1, or even 0 jhana. Even if he has no jhana, he can still be enlightened. And this has absolutely no basis in the 4 Nikayas. And they call this person the Sukha Vipassaka Arahant. Sukha means dry. It's spelled with a double K, S-U-K-K-H-A. Vipassaka, dry vision Arahant. And this, I like to point out later, how this type of wrong view came about. One was through what I believe is a wrong interpretation of the liberation by mind, or 2 ways liberated Arahant, and liberation by wisdom. So now this view that there is a Samatha Yanika and Vipassana Yanika, once you have this kind of view, then they start differentiating. They say that Samatha Yanika has no wisdom, whereas the Vipassana Yanika is cultivating wisdom. In other words, what they are saying is no different from what the Mahayanas say about Theravada and Mahayana. Basically, that they are Mahayana, the higher vehicle, and Theravada is the Hinayana, lower vehicle. So in the same way, once you separate Samatha and Vipassana, you find people who are attached to Vipassana calling themselves in the same way that they are the Maha. And you who practice the Samatha, you are the Hinayana or Hinayanika. Basically, it's the same thing. Now, one of the suttas that leads to this kind of idea is found in the Anguttara Nikaya. There's one sutta that says, 2 things contribute to knowledge. One is Samatha, the other one is Vipassana. Then they say, it's stated there, Samatha, the result of practicing Samatha is development of mind. And the result of development of mind is that lust is abandoned. And the result of abandoning lust is that you get liberation by mind. Then they say that Vipassana leads to the development of wisdom, and which in turn results in ignorance being abandoned, and which in turn results in liberation by wisdom. Now this word Samatha and Vipassana, as I pointed out in my earlier talk in Ipoh, is that Samatha literally means suppression or pacification or tranquilization. So I think the better word to use is tranquilization. It is a process of making your mind tranquil. And this leads to development of mind, which basically means concentration or tranquility. And the result of tranquility, according to this sutta, is that lust is abandoned. Now, Vipassana should be translated as contemplation. But some people, they translate it as insight. And this should not be correct, because the word Vipassana consists of 2 words, Vi and Passana. Vi is a prefix, meaning separation. And pasana is to see, to observe. So when you see and you separate, that is contemplation. And the result of practicing vipassana is development of wisdom, which is basically insight. So, since you practice vipassana, you can get insight. Vipassana should not mean insight. Vipassana should mean contemplation. And that will lead you to insight. And the result of insight is that ignorance is abandoned. And then you get liberation by wisdom. Now this kind of sutta, if you are not careful, you only study one sutta like this, you will come to the conclusion, according to this sutta, it says that samatha will give you concentration, and which results in abandoning lust. And then vipassana gives you development of wisdom, which means insight. And then from this sutta alone, you might think that samatha does not give you wisdom. Only vipassana will give you wisdom. But if you study more, there's another sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya that talks about a few types of concentration. And then it says that if you cultivate your mind to be concentrated, and so concentrated until it becomes bright, and not only so, not little bit of brightness, it's very bright, so that your mind becomes very, very bright. That is the best condition for insight, for jnana dasana. In other words, here, this second sutta is saying samatha or concentration will give you insight, which is opposite to what the other one says. And then, in this same sutta, it says that if you contemplate the body, the 32 parts of the body, lust is abandoned. So, in this second sutta, what is the meaning of it is that samatha will give you insight. Contemplation of body or vipassana will make your lust be abandoned, which is quite the opposite of the first sutta, which says that samatha will abandon lust, right? You get development of mind, concentration, then you abandon lust. And then, whereas vipassana gives you insight. So, you see, if you study only one or two suttas, and you don't study enough of the suttas, you can come to the wrong conclusion. Now, if you take these two suttas and compare, you will find that samatha gives you wisdom in one sutta, the other sutta, vipassana gives you wisdom. So how is this to be reconciled? For this now, you have to see another sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya, which says that to get Yatta Bhutta Jnana Dasana, seeing things as they really are, there is a condition. It's not simply anybody can get Yatta Bhutta Jnana Dasana, seeing things as they really are. The condition for seeing things as they really are is samadhi. And samadhi is always defined in the suttas, in the four nikayas, as the four jhanas. Sometimes it is defined as one-pointedness, which means jhana, any jhana.